Nintendo killed Miiverse, the online social features app, for this. Yeah, so this is what everyone is starting to question. With the Switch 2, Nintendo finally introduced a built-in voice chat system called Game Chat, and they're marketing it like it's the future of online play. But here's the thing, it's missing soul, it's missing features, and somehow it feels like a step backwards from what we used to have a few years ago with Miiverse. So we're going to be looking at exactly why Nintendo started Miiverse and how it came all to be, why Nintendo shut it down, what Nintendo has been developing and supplicating for in the meantime, and how it all came to the announcement of Game Chat, which is a complete mess of an online system that we'll talk about and which the internet is freaking out about. Miiverse launched in 2012 on the Wii U, so if some of you guys have never heard of Miiverse before, I don't blame you. Miiverse was basically Nintendo's shot at building a kind of wholesome, family-friendly social network just for gamers. To paint the picture, it was if Twitter only had Nintendo gamers on there with their own gaming communities. It was just with Miiverse, you could doodle on your tweets and weren't allowed to say bad words. Most of the posts on there were people talking about the game, creating art, and occasional cursed memes that somehow got through Nintendo's filtering. What made Miiverse really cool and new for the gaming industry was that the posts from Miiverse, from the game discussion to the meme culture, would be integrated into the games you were playing. It felt like a very relatable experience because it encompassed so many different scopes of players from the people playing the game that you would find. It felt a little bit different than Reddit communities because here you had most players utilizing these features instead of hardcore fans that would take the effort to go to alternative platforms. Miiverse felt like a system where it was designed for you to make meaningful close friends where everyone can relate with games. I think that apps like Twitter and Reddit really lack. If you're wondering if this was a weird corner of the internet that only 7 people only used, well, that really wasn't the case. Miiverse had millions of active users with over 100 million total messages. So with this many users on the platform, it's then fair to ask, how did Miiverse even get off the ground, and why did Nintendo make it in the first place? Well, as the usage of the internet has increased over time, Nintendo saw the need to explore social features online as most people were not playing games together locally like how they would in the 80s and 90s. They did not see social media as a great way to provide that interaction for gamers because it's not specialized for gamers. Social media, especially back then, was designed for people to give weird takes and post a bunch of pictures. So as Nintendo tried something different, Miiverse was made in a way for gamers to share their topics and interests with other gamers to spark communities. This is what Nintendo believes is what will grow gamers to their platform, is the shared experiences that gamers can feel when playing. Nintendo has always seen socializing as core to gaming, especially back in the 80s and 90s when tough games sparked local discussions about tips and strategies because the games back then were really hard. Miiverse was their way of taking that old school help each other out philosophy and bringing it online, turning the local community spirit into a digital one. Nintendo also knew that they couldn't out-tech Sony or Microsoft, so Nintendo knew they couldn't keep up with that, and it's how we got the new unique idea of Miiverse. Other competitor gaming networkers charged its users such as Microsoft and Sony for online services. However, President Satoru Iwata did not want that confinement onto casual gamers. He believed that online gaming should be accessible even if it meant absorbing some financial pressure, and so a lot of investors weren't thrilled about this. Running online services isn't cheap, but Iwata had a long-term mindset that the more players felt emotionally connected to the platform, the longer they'd stick around and the more likely they'd be able to buy more games. Iwata also did an interview contrasting Miiverse from the Xbox Live, saying that Nintendo didn't want their social system to depend on whether your friends were online or not. So instead, Miiverse was designed to make you feel like you were a part of something, even when you were playing alone. Nintendo wanted to prioritize an ambient community rather than real-time voice chat or party lobbies. This is really an insane insight to hear back for Nintendo saying this many years ago because it ties in with how they would later shut it down and change their minds completely by going in the other direction. Miiverse was also to serve a purpose of giving people an opportunity to discover other games that they haven't yet started playing. When browsing through Miiverse, you could also look at other communities and be interested in other games, and that was Nintendo's attempt at indirect marketing, almost as having a social media platform as a secondary eShop. With all of this being said, there's a painful part that comes with this entire story. Nintendo officially pulled the plug on Miiverse. they just killed it. Nintendo claims on their site that the reason for ending Miiverse was due to the shift of the rise in social networking services, I'm sure like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. They essentially said that they were moving toward more modern forms of online communication. With no direct messaging or no real-time chat, Miiverse was kinda just stuck in the past. Stuck with just posts, likes, oh my bad, I meant yes, and your Nintendo stylus. Nintendo's plan seemed very limited, as well as the social media site Miiverse would only be available to advertise their games to Nintendo users, limiting their reach. Their new idea now of going about marketing is to decentralize from their own platform onto the major social media sites where more people are at. Those larger hubs can attract other gamers and people into Nintendo's ecosystem instead of Nintendo keeping their own bubble in their own social media platform where marketing there was minimal. Going back to the initial reason for Nintendo implementing Miiverse from a financial standpoint was to spread word of mouth of games to more users in an indirect way. As looking at the performance of the Wii U, the strategy just seemed to backfire, as there were not many users on the platform to begin with to exponentially see the returns of their plans. So the loop never really took off. As Miiverse was shut down in 2017, the community didn't completely vanish, but preserved itself. There's an archive of some of the posts you can find called Miiverse Archive with millions and millions of stored users and posts that were up on Miiverse, so it's basically a digital museum now. When the Switch dropped in 2017, it was clear Miiverse wasn't coming back, and neither was any kind of robust like social system. Instead, Nintendo gave us a Nintendo Switch Online smartphone app, which, yes, required you to chat through your phone while playing on your console. It felt like they were trying to modernize, but without actually putting the modern stuff on the Switch itself. So then, why would they do this? Well, the Switch just didn't have the hardware power to pull off real-time features like system-wide voice chat or screen sharing. This shows that Nintendo is not anti-modern technology, as with using a voice chat system, but that they had to use alternatives to compensate for the cheaper power that the Switch offered. During development for their next successor console, game screen sharing on the Nintendo Switch was something Nintendo tested around with. However, the Switch's power did not have the capabilities of performing. So instead of building in communication tools, Nintendo outsourced it to your phone. It really seemed awkward at the time because it would just make sense for Nintendo to just make a stronger system to enable better features like this for like a Switch Pro, and oh wait, that's exactly what they did. So leading up to the reveal of the Switch 2, data miners have found something within the Switch's system a few days before the official announcement of the Switch 2 that showed that the Switch 2 would have group chat and voice chat functionality, as is what the C button would be alluded to for the new Joy-Cons. So many were speculating what the C button could be at this time for Nintendo's next console. Would it be for another capture button, or for a cursed emoji to pop up on screen? Well, now meet Game Chat, and ignore that it doesn't start with a C. Game Chat is Nintendo's newest shiny attempt at a voice chat-like system that is set to launch with the Nintendo Switch 2. So you'll be able to talk with other players with your microphone and camera as you are playing and sharing your screen with them, which has never been a feature that Nintendo has previously implemented. This is the first time that they are really going all in this sort of voice chat system integrated with the console itself. Now, on paper, Game Chat might sound like Nintendo finally catching up with the rest of the industry, and in a lot of ways, it actually is. With the built-in voice chat, screen sharing, and this whole new C button, that seems pretty big for Nintendo. But let's not get it twisted. Game Chat is not Miiverse 2.0. Nope. It's not even close. It's not a creative community. Game Chat does not have any public hubs. It's just a voice chat system where you can also share your screen with your friends, and that's essentially it. This is their latest, greatest new innovation that they market its consumers with. Miiverse, for all its weirdness and limitations, was built around expression. It was for players who wanted to share their experiences with everyone, not just their voice chat party. So Game Chat just feels like a downgrade from what we used to have. You're just talking to people who you already know in a private system that Nintendo wants to just own of. A Nintendo branded version of Zoom. It's not that this is bad because it exists, it's bad because Nintendo thinks it's new. Nintendo rolled it out like it's this futuristic leap for online communication, but voice chat in gaming has existed since the early 2000s. The original Xbox had it, the PS3 had it. At this point, it's like applauding someone for inventing the wheel in 2025. Game Chat lets you voice chat, screen share, and even hop on video calls, but it's all locked behind your friend list. There's no community voice lobbies or no open group browsing. It's like a private party that no one else knows you're having, which sure, it might be safer, but it also makes it feel small and isolating compared to what modern gamers expect. There's no messaging system at all, so to invite players with the Nintendo system will be extremely difficult and ineffective. There's no recording or livestream integration, which is wild in 2025, and the UI looks extremely bland and half-baked. It's like the kind of interface you'd expect to have on an early prototype instead of a finished product. I have no clue how Nintendo thought it looking like a school's Chromebook app was a great idea. When you stack Game Chat up against what Xbox and PlayStation have offered for 2 generations, it's clear Nintendo is still playing catch-up. The microphone itself sounds like you're speaking through an old walkie-talkie or a mic from the 2010s.
Hello? Hi, missed you.
If Game Chat was supposed to feel modern, Nintendo must have time traveled here from 2012. The lag is unbearable and extremely displeasing. It hurts my eyes to watch for different low quality, low FPS videos taking up a quarter of my screen. I would probably have to intentionally go out of my way to tell my friends to turn off their screen share. We are in 2025, where even a free Discord screen share can give you a consistent 30 frames per second with 720p resolution. The expectation for at least a decent performing screen share is not there while Nintendo puts this behind a price tag. And this is also another reason why alternatives like Discord are superior. I get that Nintendo is trying their own spin at screen sharing and camera, but when there are other free alternatives, it makes the system pointless and valueless. Nintendo wants Game Chat to feel like their own take on integrated communication, but when literally every other free alternative outperforms it, you have to ask, what's the point? There's not much of a reason to use this voice chat if other apps like Discord provide higher quality free services that gamers have adjusted to for around a decade now. Because of a lack of a messaging system within the Switch 2, if you ever wanted to set a time with a friend to play together, you would need to use an alternative messaging social app in the first place. As communication is already going on there, the natural tendency is to just continue communicating on there, especially if the quality is higher. Discord, in comparison, offers a much smoother performance, a platform that seems really accessible because players have adjusted for it over time and has cross-platform compatibility. It offers different gaming communities with multiple servers, similar to what Miiverse used to have. And in no way am I trying to intend to advertise Discord here like I'm secretly sponsored behind this video. It's just the game sharing app I first thought of when it came to a similar utilization of what Nintendo is trying to go for here, as there are countless others. The real insult here is that Game Chat is positioned as a premium feature, something to get excited about with the Switch 2, but what they've actually shipped feels more like a half-baked beta. Till March of 2026, Game Chat will be free for all Switch 2 owners, but after that, it will be limited to their online subscription paywall. As you compare this to Discord, which is free, Game Chat's paid model and limited scope feel like a step backwards rather than a leap forward. So here's the thing, no one was asking for Nintendo to reinvent something like the metaverse. No one needed a VR headset shaped like a Mario hat. But what players did want from this generation wasn't some clunky walkie-talkie system with laggy screen sharing. They just wanted something simple and modern and as well meaningful. They wanted a seamless party system where you could join friends and talk and hop between games together. They wanted a built-in messaging system to casually check in or organize game nights without needing to jump over the phone or an external app. They wanted an actual activity feed, something like Miiverse to share moments with others. Just like with Miiverse, what people really hoped for wasn't just communication, it was connection, the kind of presence you feel when someone comments on your in-game level. Game Chat and Miiverse might technically fall under the same umbrella, online features, but they couldn't feel more different to me. Game Chat is another voice chat, but Miiverse had a soul with expression. Nintendo unveiled this feature of Game Chat like it was a new flip phone in the age of smartphones. They carefully went over every little detail like, you can now mute your mic, as if that's not something Sony and Microsoft baked into their system decades ago. So like, yes Nintendo, thank you for blessing us with the power to press a button and stop our friends from hearing us cough. Truly incredible. Don't get me wrong, I understand marketing and making your highlights look really admirable, but presenting a feature as groundbreaking when it should have been an industry standard to have voice chat feels extremely off. And the worst part is, this is their main gimmick and new idea for the system and generation, which seems insulting to say the least. Most of the community, when hearing the announcement of Game Chat, had the same sentiment as I I am describing here, how it doesn't seem enticing for the next big feature for a new Nintendo console. People can already use voice chat, and for free using Discord. It's not necessarily that people didn't want voice chat, but because they expected more from Nintendo. Although I think this game chat system is not great, I at least feel like I get what Nintendo's idea here is, and it's that Nintendo just wants to incentivize people playing together more. Maybe almost no matter for what medium or app you're using to play together with. I think that's what Nintendo is trying to encourage gamers here. They want people to view the Switch 2 as a sort of group system where you're playing with friends and family, even if you're playing your own single player game. Nintendo has always been about playing together within their games. With all new gimmicks, it takes time for the player base and gamers to adjust to a new way of playing. I think with this perspective, at least, you can appreciate it more and understand what this game company Nintendo is trying to implement into their hardware. That they have always been about consumers utilizing their products to bring relationships with others together and want to elevate that. I know most players don't even screen share when they play with their friends or neither turn on their webcams, but that is the industry-leading shift that Nintendo wants to provoke. I do also highly encourage everyone to read some of the interviews of the game chat developers on how and why the game chat was created and what went into it, as I got to see a bit more about their perspective. They do explain that the team had to strike a balance between games and the game chat system on how much power of the console they had to utilize, since the Switch 2 is only a limited system power-wise. Although the Switch 2 can play games up to 4K, it's not a gaming PC that is capable of utilizing so much processing power. If the webcam and screen sharing had a better performance, the quality in the game you were playing on your screen would have to take a hit then. So this then leads to explain a bit of the choppy performance of game chat. This may also explain why the UI may look extremely simple throughout the Switch systems. It's to maximize power and performance. So why is Nintendo going down this direction towards game chat? Nintendo's shift towards game chat reflects a broader evolution in their online philosophy. They're moving away from experimental creative ecosystems like Miiverse and toward a safe, streamlined tool that focuses on the ease of use and controlled social interaction. Miiverse was an attempt to let you feel the presence of a global gaming community. Game chat is a way of saying, okay, let's now narrow that down to your actual friends. This is, funny enough, what Nintendo tried to not step into when creating an online social platform with Miiverse, but ended up creating it many years down the line after Miiverse. Nintendo prioritizes ease of use and safety, like their parental controls, friends online chats, over raw functionality, which may explain some limitations. So I honestly don't think we'll ever see another Miiverse again. Not because people don't love it, clearly they did, but because of everything working against it. The cost of moderation and how Nintendo now has a cautious stance on open community features. Nintendo is now more focused on safe, low friction ways for casual players to connect, and that's what game chat represents. And so if you want to share your gaming life with friends, honestly, Discord is just better. It has everything game chat doesn't. But what Nintendo is trying to do here, however clunky, is bring that playing together feeling into its ecosystem in the easiest way possible. It's not flashy and deep, but it's to be on brand. So drop me below about what you guys think about game chat. Thanks for watching.